Good morning, or afternoon, or evening, however you find this. My name is Joe, and I'm going to do something a little bit different than I've normally done in the past. I haven't posted any type of content on my YouTube page since July, and I have a lot of things in the back burner in terms of content. So I figured something that I could do in the time where I'm trying to sort of figure out how I want to go about distributing content to give people something a little bit different. So what I'm going to try to do is every Monday, I'm going to post just me talking on the internet about a topic or something that's kind of been on my mind as of recently. And we'll see how this goes. So kind of what will be like one part a wrap up of the previous week and kind of what's ahead, and then kind of we'll see how this works over the next couple of weeks. And then if this is something that sticks, maybe I'll switch it to two times a week. We'll figure something out. Because I have a lot on my mind, and sometimes it's very difficult to hit go live and sort of disseminate these thoughts or disseminate, I don't know what the word is, but sprinkle these thoughts in a way that's reflective of the time that I have. Because now school's back in session and all my other jobs are kind of moving the way that they should. My time is very, very limited. But I do have time to hit record and talk about a few things. I guess the first thing that's been on my mind is sports. I wish more people on like the spaces that I was on or that I am on just follow sports, because it's kind of depressing in that like when I want to talk about football, I want to talk about UFC, I want to talk about the Eagles almost losing to the Detroit Lions in common Eagles fashion, but unfortunately not a lot of people, I guess, in like the left leaning part of YouTube and well really Twitch, the left leaning part of Twitch, they don't follow sports and they just kind of meme about it, which is kind of weird because I think you need like sort of cathartic hobbies that you can just kind of like sprinkle your energy to and sprinkle your passion to, that's completely separate to what you do on the platform and stuff like that. But you know, it is what it is. But yeah, the Eagles won yesterday. I think it was 38-35, way closer than it needed to be. But Detroit's not a bad team, so I wasn't necessarily expecting it to be that close, but I wasn't expecting it to be a blowout either. But it was closer than I thought. But it is what it is, and they're looking good. Like Jalen's looking great. The run game is still the Eagles' run game. They're still one of the best in the league, and that's going to be something that might pose a problem because I'm not necessarily sure how balanced Jalen Hurts can be long term. I think that he needs to be a little bit more balanced of a quarterback. And I think Nick has his work cut out for him, but he's going to try to have a more balanced pass and run threat, because it is possible that the Eagles might end up being the like top 5 or number 1 offense in the league, and that'd be kind of cool. UFC happened, not much to it. There were fights. It was kind of an underwhelming card, but that's okay. Like it was always cool just to spend the evening with some friends, just watching sports and being cathartic. But that's actually not what's been on my mind. What's been on my mind is of recently is schools, and something that I think is really important, at least for my audience and the people who watch me, is kind of understanding where I stand on private schools. Because I know a lot of individuals who believe themselves to be on the left in whatever capacity have a lot of hot takes about private schools, and there's like different levels of that. Some people want to abolish them, some people want them to be sort of reformed. I'm of the position that they're necessary and that you need private schools to have a representative environment for parents to choose how their child's educated. And if private schools isn't the word that you want, then you can also just use the word specialty schools. I think that you're going to need specialty schools to have a diverse educational environment. I think the problem is that there's obviously problems within private schools where you don't want to have this sort of like generational push of people going to these institutions and being alienated from their communities. But by and large, I think that you can and should have private schools. Like I don't think it's a good idea to support the abolishment of private schools for a centralization of public education. Um, and that might be an opinion that's surprising for some individuals who watch me, but yeah, I'm in full support of private schools, and I think you need to have them. No different than you need to have homeschooling. I think that we have to sort of recognize that everybody learns in different ways, and everybody wants their child to be educated in different ways. So you're going to have different educational environments that are consistent and representative of what a parent wants. So if the parent wants their child to have a comprehensive religious education, then there's got to be a school for that. If you want your child to have a comprehensive arts education, then there's got to be a school for that. And you can still have your SATs, you can still have your ACTs, you can have all those tests and different levels of assessment when you're going into four-year institutions, universities, I should say, universities, colleges, and stuff like that. But you also need like a better choice for how you educate your child. We can see the pitfalls in homeschooling where it's kind of a wild west. These things can obviously be a bit more centralized in guidance, but a part of me is starting to think that if parents had the proper resources, they would build an educational program that allows their child to go to the route that they want. So if you have a situation where your child is very gifted in the arts and they want to go to an art school, I don't think it's unreasonable for them to want to either A, homeschool them, or B, put them in a private school and just avoid public schools altogether. But I also see a world where there's some parents who just want to make sure their kid go to public school and interact with public school kids. But I think whatever route you go, I don't think cost should be a factor. That's probably like the biggest thing. So if you have a child that's educationally gifted or art or gifted in the arts or whatever field it might be, and you feel like a private institution is the option for them, like a specialty school, right? Then they should be able to do that without any type of like hoops and ladders and duct tape or even getting prohibited by cost. All of the things that I want with private schools, not really private schools, but with schooling broadly, is going to require, I think, a massive expansion of how these things are funded. It shouldn't be, I guess what we kind of see in different varying levels of intensity are parents making choices for their child and then just kind of being on an island. Like homeschool parents are on an island with other homeschool parents. And that's not necessarily the best thing in the world. We recognize that, like having a diverse environment, diverse educational environment involves having a diverse environment of different types of people who are not only part of the educational environment that you're in, but other ones as well. And that's gonna obviously require federal funding. There's no way around it. There's no way around the federal government needing to have a bigger contribution to the choices that parents can have and make. It's very clear that they're kind of just put on islands and then just go, hey, like figure it out. And that's not necessarily something that I agree with or think that's a good idea. I personally went through public schools. But I do think that schools it wasn't really for me. But also I had a family who just kind of thought that the way that you go through school is that you go to school, you go home, and then you just lock yourself in a room and do work. So it was a very lonely experience. And I think a lot of my sort of feelings on public schools came from the loneliness I felt when I was like learning about things. Because I was musically gifted as well. So it's very tricky when you're very musically inclined, but everything else is awful. I was a really bad student, but musically I did very well. And that created a very weird set of predicaments where just teachers didn't know what to do with me. Where it's like, well, he loves music and he's very good at this, but everything else is awful. But there wasn't anybody saying that, like, hey, these are things that are important so that you can be successful in the field that you're in. That was never something that was articulated to me. And maybe if that was something that was articulated and pushed early on, and even to with my family, maybe there would have been like different options for me in my current situation, because maybe I was a child that needed to be homeschooled and really prioritizing an arts-based education. But there's no way to know now because I'm pooped out of that system or in a new one. But yeah, but I guess like to round out the thought, you need to have choices for parents, and that choice can't just be public schools. I think that there's so much defaulting to, oh yeah, public schools are the way to go. Public schools, public schools. And it's like, no, like we understand that, we don't want to have a monopoly of choice and that every child learns differently. So that you're going to need to have like specialty schools that specialize in particular fields. You're going to need vocational schools. You're going to need homeschooling. All these things need to be options for parents. And right now the option is pretty much public school, especially if you're broke, like public school or public school. And that's not okay. That's really just not just ain't it. So I do wish people advocated more for the expansion of choice for parents and not just sort of defaulting to just wanting public schools or abolishing private schools. And a lot of times when I talk to left leaning people about these things, it's like there's always some like atheism that is in play, where they'll have problems with private schools, and then they'll just only like harp on the religious argument of like, yeah, well, like you don't want these like hyper Christian. It's just like, come on, man. Like you're gonna need you're gonna need to have an expansion of religion, an expansion of understanding of religion and respect of religion in order to even like consider yourself on the left, at least in my opinion. And again, like these left right dichotomy is kind of bullshit, but it's very clear that like there's a section of people on the internet that are very anti private school, but they're also anti-religion, and that anti-religion leaks into their anti-private, and it just leads to poor outcomes. Because not every private school or specialty school is going to be a religious institution. And then when you kind of like try to harp like, okay, well, what are the problems that you see? Like, what are the things that are kind of on your mind? And they're just like, I just don't like religion. And it's like, okay, that's not an argument. And then like you ask, okay, what are the problems that you see in private schools? And then they start doing this like weird, like, well, something white flight. And it's like, I promise you, like, if you're gonna get rid of private schools and you're gonna have all of those white kids going to public schools now, their parents are just gonna move. Like they're gonna do the same thing that they've always been doing. But now you just get rid of an option for them. So now instead of like putting your kid in a private school and move, their option is move. So we can't do these things in a vacuum, but I do think something we can do is just expand the choices that parents have and just giving them better options so that you have a comprehensive private school environment, you have a comprehensive homeschool environment, you have a comprehensive vocational environment, and a comprehensive public school environment. And all of these things are properly funded so that you're not dealing with certain pitfalls of like, well, the private schools are better because they're more funded. Like, no, like all these things need to be funded relative to what their needs are. And the federal government needs to actually like contribute and put some money up, because not every state is going to have the ability to fund these things. So this is where the Fed needs to come in. Like we understand that education is one of the most important tools that we can give to somebody. And I think for me, right, the goal of education is so that I'm putting my children in a better position than I was in. And then they put their children in a better position that they were in. And it's constantly improving and constantly evolving. And then that's just sort of the way, that's the way that I think you need to kind of like approach education, how you need to approach raising your kids, of like, I want my kids to be better than me. And the only way to do that is to have comprehensive choices, so they're able to make decisions, and I'm supposed to make decisions on their behalf when need be, to lead to outcomes I think are going to be good for them, especially within education. So this week I'm on a panel with Stardust. I think it's on Friday. I'm not exactly sure what time that's going to be, but it's going to be at some point. So I gotta double check my email and stuff and DMs. But if you want to watch my content live, you can do so on twitch.tv/Joe Lewis. This is an ad for later, so let me just hide this. This is the one problem with doing things like live, where like it just kind of teases some things. We're also gonna hide the overlay as well. So you can follow me at twitch.tv/Joe Lewis with 2 O's. I don't publish my VODs anymore, because I'm gonna try to save them for my own content creation. So I'm keeping things kind of like behind the scenes, and then if I feel something is of value to publish, I'll publish it. So be sure to follow that channel so you can see when I'm live, so that way you can consume the content that need be. Because again, I'm not going to be publishing my VODs moving forward. Also, obviously, there's a YouTube channel. I'm going to try again to post more here, so that people have things that they can watch that are, and again, like this is kind of like a mixed bag. Like the most recent conversation I had was the one from Clubhouse, and that was almost like a couple months ago at this point. It says a month ago, but that's not true. It was back in like July. But yeah, so the Twitch channel, the YouTube page, those are 2 fantastic places. If you want to support me financially, you can do so through Patreon for $1, $3, or $5. This helps pay the bills and make sure that my economic needs are met, because it's really expensive to live in my state. So any type of support in that regard would be greatly appreciated. With that being said, have a good rest of your day, evening, or afternoon, and hopefully I'll see you next week. Take care.